This conference will now be recorded.
Vande Guru Paramparam. Ragadirogan sadadanushaktan asheshakaya prasrudan asheshan Aulsukya moharadidan jakhana Yo purva Vaidyaya namostu tasmai. In our last session, we were talking about that Shimbi Dhanyam, and we concluded Mashotra Sarveshu Avaro Yavaga Shugajeshu Cha. Then that Dhanya Vargam is concluding Navam Dhanyam Abhishyandi Laghu Samvalsaroshidam Shighrajanma Tadha Supyam Nistusham Yukti Bharjitam. This is not about the Shimbi Dhanyam alone, but it is about all the types of Dhanyam, a general statement. Navam Dhanyam Abhishyandi. Any Dhanyam which is Navam is Abhishyandi. Abhishyandi means Abhishyandi has got various meanings in various contexts. But here, especially in the context of Dravyam, an Abhishyandi Dravyam means something which destabilizes the kabham, causing its sravanam. Sravanam, especially focused in the srotas. So Abhishyandi can be understood as Srodo Abhishyandi, Kabha Vruddhi Krit, that way. We can see Hemadri commenting as Abhishyandi Srodasravi. That is a good explanation in this context. So Navam Dhanyam Abhishyanti. Navam is a freshly harvested and stored. Freshly harvested. Dhanyam, when you use, then that can be Abhishyanti, Sroda Sravi, Kabha Vruddhi Krit. Laghu Samvalsaroshidam. Samvalsaroshidam. Samvalsaroshidam means something which is stored for an year. Stored for an year is known as Samvalsaroshidam. That is Laghu. That is Laghu Samvalsaroshidam. So Navam is Abhishyandi, Samvalsaroshidam is Laghu. Actually, this Laghu is not an opposite of Abhishyandi as such. We all know. Laghu stands against Guru. So here the Abhishyandi has got that sense also, that it is Kabhavardhagam, Brahmanam, then Guru. So Navam Dhanyam is Guru. Samvalsaroshidam Dhanyam is Laghu. Similarly, Shighrajanma. Shighrajanma is also Laghu. Shighrajanma means something which can be harvested in short duration. After the entire course of that plant, the lifespan of the plant is very short. We have seen Shashtigam, which needs only 60 days. Sometimes it may be 90, sometimes it may be 100 plus. So shorter the lifespan, the Dhanyam will be Laghu, Shighrajanma. Tadha Supyam. Supyam which is suitable for making soups, soupium. So generally this Shimbidhanyam, they are mainly used for making soups. So they are also laghu, especially when they are used as soupam. And that Shighra Janma can also be seen connected with that soupium. When this those Shimbidhanyam which are Shighra Janma, they are also laghu. That way also it can be explained, which is true also. Then nistusham dhanyam is laghu. When that tusham, that husk is removed, or that skin is removed, especially in the case of this mudgadi Shimbidhanyam, when that skin is peeled, then it obviously it becomes laghutaram. Yukri bharjidam, heated to roast or fry, that is bharjidam. So yukti bharjidam, properly roasted or fried, they also become laghu. Nistusham yukri bharjidam. So these things are very important actually, because we should have an idea. We do not know how far it is practical, because many a times we use or cook whatever we get, which is the sad part of it. It should not be the case. I think we should have some idea about how to use these things, when to use these things, and who should use it. So all these things we should have some idea. So that is why these things are elaborated. Generally, we won't see these sort of elaborations in a standard textbook of maybe Adhuravrutam alone, the so-called textbooks of medicine. So Annam is so important. In any case, Annam is so important, especially in Ayurvedam. The approach towards Annam is very, very serious. So that is why we find these sort of finer explanations, and we have to look into the reality also, what is happening around. Sometimes we may be getting some dhanyam which may be even very old, which was stocked or piled in the godowns of this Food Corporation of India or something like that, maybe for a long period of time. So they may even exceed 1 year limit. So what will be its nature? These days we find the grains are harvested, and right on the spot in the field itself they are collected by this mill companies, rice mill or whatever it is companies, and they are changed to grains, polished grains, and sold outright in the market. So when we depend upon the private players in the field, most probably you will be getting navam dhanyam. Again, the dhanyam which is harvested and kept within that natural skin or shell, husk, that is how it is generally stored in the conventional style, and it will be kept in the stores for maybe months together, and only when you need it you take the sufficient or required quantity and mill it, dehusk and polish it to make it a ready to use form. But instead, in Food Corporation of India, go down, or some other places of the similar type, what you may find is you may get very old dhanyam, but interestingly, it will not be dehusked on when you need, not dehusked when you need. It is dehusked in advance, polished and prepared as rice. And in the rice form only, the final product form only, it is kept for months. So you cannot expect the type of grain that you find in the textbooks, even though it is more than 1 year old or 1 year old or 8 months old, whatever it is. It is stored in a different way. It is prepared in a different way. So we should have an idea what is happening in the society. So Lekhu Samvalsaroshidam. So fresh and 1 year old. So these are the two borderlines. Are they two extremes? Is there any possibility in between? That also should be looked into. So there are some rules or some idea given in this regard, like Varshasthidam Sarvadhanyam Parityajati Gauravam. Varshasthidam Sarvadhanyam, if you store some dhanyam, any type of dhanyam for 1 year, that Parityajati Gauravam, it loses its Gurutvam. Nadu Tyajati Tad Vidyam. That is an interesting part. So even though making use of the advantage of kalam, the dhanyam is becoming lakhu, but its viryam will not be lost. Natu tyajati tad viryam. But after 1 year, if you still store it, viryam munjati adaparam. Adaparam, afterwards, it will start losing its viryam as well. Viryam, you need not take it in the sense of Ushnam Shida Gunotkarshar Tatra Viryam Dvitha. That need not be the case. Its potency or its potential as a food grain, that starts degrading with time after 1 year. So up to 1 year, then which is the ideal time then? There are some ideas regarding that discussion as well, or that point as well. Amasa shatkam dhanyanam guruda vibhicharini. Up to 6 months, it is not ideal to use it because of the gurutva. So ideally, this can be used after 6 months of storage and within 1 year. So the time period between 6 months and 1 year can be considered as maybe the best time for consumption of stored grains. So how far it is practicable, how far it is a reality, what is happening, all these things are looked into by the Vaidyas. If you want to get a clear-cut idea about the Ahara Vithi that is prevailing in our own society, then there are some more other aspects which can influence this sort of Guruta and Lekhuta of Dhanya. We have already seen that Navam Dhanyam Abhishyanti. Fine. Sekyam Kedarajam Chayad. That is another observation. Sekyam Dhanyam Abhishyanti. A Dhanyam which is cultivated with sejanam, irrigation. That also will be Abhishyanti and Guru. Sekyam. kedarajam cha. Yad dhanyam kedarajam tadabi abhishyandi. Kedaram is that field which is generally waterlogged. When you are cultivating this paddy or similar grains, you need properly prepared fields, agricultural fields for that, paddy fields for that, where you will be retaining the water for days together, months together. So practically you are making that particular field, despite the very nature of the surrounding area, temporarily maybe, you are making that particular field an anupadesam. So such dhanyam which are growing in the Kedaram, they also will be abhishyandi in general, abhishyandi and guru. But even such grains can be made laghu by storing for an year. Laghu, varshoshidam, that is what we saw earlier, that samvalsaroshidam. When stored for a year, they become laghu. Again, dagdha bhumijam dhanyam laghu. Dagdham, burnt. It is a practice of growing certain grains. That area will be burnt after the harvesting. The field will be burnt. That happens in the wheat fields of maybe North India, Punjab, Haryana area, and I have heard that when they burn the entire field, that ash and smoke coming out of that burning, that causes serious pollution issues in the National Capital Territory, which is even now a problem with this current farmer strike and everything. So dagdha bhumijam dhanyam is laghu. Dagdha bhumijam. Similarly, there are certain other types of crops which can be grown in dry lands, not in wetlands. They are known as sthala sambhavam. Sthala sambhavam dhanyam. There are certain millets, trinadhanyam, which do not need the sort of irrigation or the kedaram which is waterlogged. So they are laghu. Sthala sambhavam dhanyam laghu. So that also should be kept in mind, because we are suggesting all these things. We are advising pathyapatyam. So on what ground you are prescribing or advising? What do you know really where these grains are coming from? When you make a very loose and a generalized statement about you take this or do not take that, what is the basis of such a suggestion? So all these things are important. Navam dhanyam abhishyandi sekyam kedarajam chayad laghu varshoshidam dagdha bhumijam sthala sambhavam. So all these things are certain ideas about the gurutvam and laghutvam of different dhanya. Then we move on to the kridanna vargam. Kridanna vargam, annam, kritannam. That means pakvannam. Kritannam is pakvannam. We find the first sloka in that section. Mandapeya vilebinam odanasya cha lakhavam yatha purvam. Mandapeya vilebinam odanasya cha lakhavam yatha purvam. So 4 stuffs are included in that list: mandam, peya, vilebi, and odanam, of which the first 3, mandam, peya, and vilebi, are 3 types of or categories of gruels. Peya, yavagu, all they are sometimes some of these names are used interchangeably, we can see. So basically these are gruel types. Basically they are again rice gruel types. So we find mandam, peya, vilebi. These 3 are the gruels, and 4th one is odanam. So we should have an idea what these stuffs are. Mandam, sikthair virahito mandaha. That is how Sushruta defines it. Sikthaihi virahito. A soup like loose stuff made out of this rice without any rice in it. Siktham, without any rice. Sikthaihi virahitaha. That is known as mandam. Sikthair virahito mandaha. Whereas peya siktha samanvida, with that cooked grains of rice, still loose in consistency for a rich liquid part. Mandam is liquid part alone. There is no cooked grains in it. Whereas Sikta Samanvida is peya, but still the liquid portion is more. Ghana Sikta Vilebi Syad. Ghana Sikta Vilebi. Vilebi is Ghana Sikta. Watery portion or liquid portion is very less, but still present. And the solid part, Siktham, that is more. Ghana Sikta, thick Siktham. Rice part is thick, dense. Yavagur Viraladrava. Yavagur Viraladrava. Yavagu is something which can be placed between peya and vilebi. That is yavagu. But generally, this term yavagu can be seen as a common name for this preparations with siktham. Yavagu can be seen as a common name. So actually, asiktha dravaha mandaha, sasiktaha yavagu. So that could be a good classification. We find this classification in the Hemadri commentary. Asiktha dravaha mandaha, sasiktaha yavagu. And that sasikta portion, that means yavagu, is divided into 2 by Hemadri. Alpasikta peya, bahusikta vilebi. So all these are basically soupy gruels. But when we move from the mandam to the vilebi, the liquid portion is less and less, and the solid portion is increasing. And odanam is adravani sikthani. That liquid portion, the watery part, is filtered out and dried practically. So it is strained. That is known as odana. This is a general understanding about it. Any grain can be used for making all these things, but in general it is about rice, and any grain can be used for making all this gruel part, especially the mandam also. There is no only watery part, no solid part, but in general, especially in the context of treatments, mandam is generally made out of lajam. So that means parched rice. Lajam, everybody knows what lajam is. So mandapeya vilebina modanasya cha laghavam yatha purvam. Now we find the characteristics of these separate stuffs one after the other. Mandam. Shivastatra mando vadhanulomanaha. Tridglani doshasheshaknaha. Tridghnaha glaniharaha doshasheshaknaha. Pajano dhadu samyakrit srodomardavakrit swedi sandhukshayadi cha analam. So it's a beautiful explanation. Shivaha Mangalya or Mangalakaraha, which is interesting. This mandam is known as Shivaha Mangalakaraha. It is just the maybe some sort of a thin rice soup without any solid part. Is known as mandam, and it is explained or extolled as Shivam Mangalam. Why? That is an interesting point. Maybe it may be there somewhere in the commentary, but the point is this mandam is used in almost all situations, can be used in any situation where even you have severe loss of appetite, arojakam or aruji, or you have some other complaints like bhaktarodham, and you are in a crisis. Even in such situations, this mandam can be used, and that helps to retain the prana, prevents the risk of pranapayam. So that is how it is, that is why it is mentioned as Mangalakaram or Shiva. Mandam is Shiva. Then many other properties. Tridglani dosha sheshaknaha, vadhanulomanaha, pachanaha. Pajanam. Generally, when there is a requirement of pajanam, we don't advise any food, because Agni is already in a crisis. Amam is already there, which is yet to be pakwam, and minimal food can be accommodated. So in such cases, such situations, mandam is the best choice. Pajanaha, dhadu samya krit. Mandam can be used for dhadu samya karanam, which is easy to get processed and get converted to rasadhadu. Then it is Srodo Mardava Krit also. So obviously it will be excellent in Jara. Swedi. Again, it connects it to the context of Jara. Analam sandhukshayadi, that means deepanam. So it is deepanam, pajanam, dhadu samyakrit, dosha sheshakhnam. Dosha sheshakhnam means in every case of shodhana chikitsa, after once the shodhanam is completed, you should expect some dosha shesham. In Jwaram, we find such in everywhere, every shodhana chikitsa, the entire dosham is not subjected to shodhanam. There will be a little bit of even in the best case of shodhana chikitsa, there will be dosha shesham. So that is to be addressed in that samsarjana kriya, yadha anuragni agni trinagomayadyehi sandhukshyamano bhavati kramena. We all know the importance of peyadikramam or samsarjana kriya. So in such cases, that dosha shesha haratvam of mandam is very beautifully used, and it is trishna shamani, glani shamani, which again can be used in situations of immediate attention as well. In Jwara Chikitsa, we find situations like this. Yuktam langhidalingaistu tam peyabhirubajared yadhaswaushadha siddhabhihi mandapurvadihi purvadibhihi mandapurvabhihi yadhaswaushadha siddhabhihi mandapurvabhihi peyabhihi. So yuktam langhidalingaistu tam jwarinam यथास्व औषध सिद्धाभिः मंडपूर्वाभिः पेयाभिः आदितः उपाचरेद. So that langhida after samyak langhanam, the jwaritah is taken care of with the help of peya, and that starts with the mandam. So mandam is an interesting preparation. There are many advices how this mandam is prepared. We will come to it at the end after completing all the explanations of these types or the stuffs. We will come to that point. Then we find peya. Peya is explained as Kshutrishna glani daurbalya kukshiroga jwarapaha malanulomani pathya peya deepanapajani. Again, peya is also deepanapajani. So in situations where this langhana chikitsa is advised, upavasa rupa langhanam even, that need not be an extreme upavasam. Classical example is jwaram. Jwaridan upavasayed. But one condition is there. Balam yatnena palayan. So you cannot go for extreme fasting. You have to go for a langhanam, but which will not challenge the balam to the extremes, because the patient is already jwarita. Jwara is a classical example of a disease which can be named as ojo asana. So the maintenance of balam is very important. So you have to come to a practical way of doing things. So you have this mandam, you have this peya, you take this peya, still you can go through the chikitsa of langhanam, because this Peya is Deepanapachani. Kshutrishna, Glani, Daurbalya, Kukshiroga Jwarapaha. Kukshirogam is a general term. Hemadri prefers to explain it as Adhisaram. Fine, equally good. Any Kukshirogam can be taken here, but specifically Adhisaram. Fine. Kutshi actually is the Udaram, and as the Agni is seated in the Kutshi, generally it is taken for granted that Agni Mandyam is the reason for all sorts of Vyadhis. Sometimes Adidipti as well. Samapragobau doshanam sarvesham Agni Hetuko. So there is a belief, or there is a saying that Udaram Vyadhi Mandiram. So that way also I think this Peya attains the status of the best food for all sorts of diseases. Kukshiroga Jarabaha, Malanulomani. It is Malanulomani. Pathya. Pathya. Actually, Pathyam is a synonym for Chikilsa. Pathyam is a synonym for Hitam. Pathyam is also a synonym or something which favors the status of Padham, Srotas, Rasayani. So that way also Peya attains importance. It is Pathya and Deepanapachini also. So that is about Peya. Peya, as we saw earlier, is in between the Mandam and Vilebi. Of course, we will be placing Yavagu again in between, which we will see later. So that is about Peya. Now we find Vilebi. Vilebi Grahini Hridya. Earlier we saw the other two as Anulomani, especially Peya as Malanulomani. Of course, the meaning of Malam is not confined to Purisham or Mutram. It is encompassing the doshas as well. But here it is specifically Grahini. Grahini. Then Hridya. Hridya is something which is acceptable, attractive in terms of the taste, palatability. That is also the meaning of Hridya. Need not be limited to something which is good for the Hridayam. Hridayam is many a times used as synonym or an associate at least of Manas as well. So here Hridyam means Manasapriyam. Trishnakni, Trishnahari, Trishnakni, Deepani. It is Deepani. It is Deepani. Then Hita, Hita means it is good in certain conditions which we are going to see in the next line. Vrana Akshiroga Samshuddha Durbala Snehapainam. In Vranam, Vilebi is fine. Vilebi is Ghanasiktha. The liquid portion is very minimal. Akshirogam, Vranam, Akshirogam, Samshuddha, somebody who has undergone Chodhana Chikilsa. Then Durbalaha, weak. Then Snehapai, somebody who has who is through the course of snehapana. Yaha snehanartham pratyaham sneham pibadi saha snehapayi. So for such snehapayinam, vilepi is hita. Vilepi. So it is something like that. The name itself is vilepi. So it is something like in the consistency of a lepanam. Vilepi. Peya, something which can be taken as a panam. Peya. Good as a or suitable as a panam. So Yavagu is somewhere in between. Not the consistency of this payam, but not up to the level of vilepanam. In between. In Kashyapa, we can find the explanation or some other way of doing or separating or classifying these stuffs. Ahastaharya peya syad. Peya, you cannot eat using your or with the help of your hands. Ahastaharya, you cannot grab it with the hand. Whereas Yavagu saparigraha. But when it goes to the consistency of Yavagu, you can even eat it with your hands. Obviously, vilepi also can be taken with your hands. Ahastaharya peya. So you can even drink it, but you cannot take it with your fingers and eat. That is peya. Now odanam. Odanam. Odanam is the properly cooked and strained rice to remove that liquid part. That is known as odanam. Sudhauda. Prasrutaha. There is another padham called susrutaha. Swinnaha. Tyaktoshma chaudano laghuhu. So only one characteristic is explained. It is laghu. But it is a conditional clause. All odanam is not laghu, but odanam prepared in a particular way is laghu. That is what is explained. Sudhautaha, susrutaha, swinnaha, tyaktoshma cha odanaha laghuhu. Sudhautaha, properly washed and cooked. That first cooking is not given there, but that should be understood. Then susrutaha or prasrutaha, properly filtered to remove that liquid portion completely. Susrutaha or prasrutaha, prakarshena srutaha. Srutam, sieved, strained, filtered to the best level possible. Then swinnaha, but even despite the best of the efforts, you cannot remove the full water portion by sieving, filtering. Then how should you remove it? Put that cooking vessel, the utensil, back onto that burning oven and swinnaha. With that svedanam, the remaining watery portion is also lost. Then keep it open for a while so that ushma, bashpam, that vapors, that escapes. Otherwise, if you close it, that vapor again get clogged on that lid, and that falls back to the rice again, cooked rice. That should not happen. So until that bashpam is lost, but still the rice is warm, keep the vessel open. Tyaktoshma. Such odanam is laghu. That is what we find here as the explanation of laghu odanam. Definitely, this is going to be influenced this way or that way by the type of grain you are using. Even in the same type of grain, different varieties of the same grain is going to be affected. Boiled rice, parboiled rice, or raw rice, all these things will have different characteristics by default. But still, when you cook, if you make it like this, sudhauda, susruta, swinna, tektoshmacha odanaha, laghu, comparatively there may be different vikalpam within, but by and large it can be considered as laghu. Actually, that is an indication, or is something like a direction about how the rice should be cooked. Sudhauda tandulaha ambhobihi trigunaihi sadhupachitaha. There is one way of explaining how this rice is cooked. Trigunaihi ambhobihi, 3 times water. The quantity of water should be 3 times the quantity of the grain. Sadhupachitaha, properly cooked. Sthali Pulaganayam, I just recollect at this point, Sthali Pulaganayam, where we say this Sadhupachitaha. Nischodidambuhu, Nischodidambu, the water portion, Ambu portion is drained. There are many mechanisms, many ways of doing this. Susvinnaha, again the remaining portion of the water within the grains, that also should be removed by keeping this again on the oven. Kavoshnaha, then still a little bit warm. Such an audano laghu. This is another explanation. What we saw in earlier sloka, and this one is a little bit elaborate. Still, when you are using a navam dhanyam, can you expect it? Even if you prepare it in the way which is explained, will it be that laghu when compared with a samvalsaroshida dhanyam? No, there can be differences. Navam dhanyam, even if it is prepared in this way, what we saw here, that need not be that laghu, it will be guru. So then, in such situations, you are supposed to prepare the odanam by adding some sort of a medication. Especially, this is more relevant when you are preparing odanam for an adura, for a patient, for a healthy person, as we find in the case of in Charaka Samhita, in a different context. All these things like this guruta, lekhuta, all these things are not relevant in certain cases. In certain cases, like if you are exercising every day, if your Agni Shakti is excellent, you need not bother about all these things. In Charaka Samhita, we find Guru Laghava Chindeyam Prayena Alpa Balan Prati Mandakriyan, practically, who is very sedentary, Anarogyan Prati, Sukumaran Prati, Sukhojidan Prati. Whereas Deeptagnayaha, Gharaharaha, Karmanitya, Mahodara, Yenara, Praditams Chindyam Navasyam Guru Laghavam. That is another story. But as far as a patient is concerned, you have to be cautious about all these things. So in such cases, you are supposed to do some sort of a samskaram of the odanam using certain medicines. So that is what we find in the next line. Yaschagne aushadhakvadha sadhido. Agneya aushadhakvadha sadhitaha odanaha api lakhu. So in such cases, you have to do some sort of a samskaranam of the odanam while cooking. You put maybe a small potali, maybe with a couple of teaspoonfuls of panchagola churnam. Then even the navam dhanyam, which is otherwise abhishyandi kabhavrithigaram guru, the odanam made out of it is going to be laghu. Yascha agneya aushadhakvadha sadhitaha. Again, bhrashta tandulaha. You heat it, heat the grains first, fry it. Then with that heated or parched or fried, that rice grain, you prepare odanam. So then it will become laghu. Bhrashta tandulaha odanaha laghu. So in total, what we find there is Sudhauda, Prasruda, Svinna, Tyaktoshma. Atyaktoshma is a Padhabedam, but Tyaktoshma is logically better. Atyaktoshma is to be explained in a different way. Chaudano laghuhu yaschagre aushadhakvadha sadhido bhrishtatandulaha. All these things are general instructions. And there can be many modifications, modified opinions in this regard, which is quite natural, because you may be using, see, the type of grain what you are getting in one part of the country and the other part of the country, or one part of the world and the other part of the world need not be same. So these are overgeneralizations, and different types of grains can also be used. Not the different varieties of the same grain, but different types of grains also can be used. Of course, rice is the most commonly used, no doubt. Again, in the case of mandam, as we saw earlier, not the direct rice, but parched rice, or what we call as lajam, is used most commonly, or the most popular type. So such changes can be there. Again, this laja mandam can be seen very liberally used in Adura Vrittam. Even though it may not be that popular in Swastha Vrittam, but in Adura Vrittam it is very popular. Lajamando Vishuddhanam Pathyaha, we find in Sushruta Samhita. Lajamando Vishuddhanam Pathyaha, Pajanadipanaha, Vadanulomanaha, Hrudyaha, Pippalinaagaranvitaha. You see, Laja is used, Mandam is prepared, still it is Pippalinaagaranvitaha. So Vishuddhanam Agnideepanartham, Sheshadosha Pajanartham, Lajamandaha is advised, and that also to be prepared along with the Pippali and Nagaram. So importance of Lajam, importance of Mandam, and importance of Agneya Aushadhakvada Samskaranam. In Charagam, in one situation, many situations we will find, one such situation is Lajamando Agni Jananaha. So Lajamandam has got a specific thrust in such situations. Lajamandogni jananaha, dahamurcha nivaranaha. Dahamurcha nivaranaha. So murcha nivaranatvam, please keep it in mind. We can find many special medicated versions of Lajamandam in Charagam. Like, I can give you one quick example. Shrida pippali shundhibhyam yukto Laja amla dadimaihi mandaha sandeepayatyagnim vadam japya anulomayed. Almost all ideas are same, even though contexts are different. Mridu karodi srodamsi, we saw it earlier. Svedam sanjanayatyapi lankhitanam viriktanam jirne snehe cha trishyadam दीपनत्वाद लघुत्वाच्च मंडस्याद प्राणधारणः. Very, very important. Deepanatvad laghutvacha. In such situations, mandasyad pranadharanaha. Trishnadisara shamano dhadu samyakaraha sivaha. This is another version of what we saw in Ashtanga Hridaya. So all these things should be borne in mind. You need not by heart all these things, but you should have an idea where all these things are explained, in which context, and what is the importance. That would be definitely influencing your prescribing pattern and your understanding of the condition. There may be many methods of preparing these sorts of gruels. I mentioned it earlier that we will see it later. But generally, it is believed that annam panjagune sadhyam. This is all about the quantity of water that you have to add. Annam panjagune sadhyam. Vilepitu chadurgune. Vilepitu chadurgune. Mandaha chadurdasha gune. Mandam is to be prepared in chadurdasha gune. Yavagu shadgunem bhasi. Shadgunem bhasi. So annam in panjagunem bhasi. Vilepitu chadurgunem bhasi. Mandaha chadurdasha gunem bhasi. Yavagu shadgunem bhasi. But we have seen regarding the odanam, here it is panjagunam, but earlier we saw another reference that it is trigunayam bhasi. The differences could be, there is another practice. If you go through the different explanations of preparing rice, most of the types advocates that filtering part is not required. You cook in water, in the minimal required water, and allow the water to get utilized completely in the process of cooking, so that by default there is no water left behind. So in such situations, I think this trigunayam bhasi may be sufficient. But when you are going to cook it, then sieve it and remove the watery portion, then you may require panjagunayam bhasi. When you want to make it a vilepana type of vilepi, then you cook it in chadurgunayam bhasi. When you want to remove that solid part completely after cooking and leaving behind a rich or abundant watery portion called mandam, then you cook it in 14 times of water. And when you want to have a yavagu here, which may be considered as a synonym for peya as well, you cook it in shadgunayam bhasi. So the cooking practices may be different. This is what we find in the text itself, which are maybe as old as 1500 years. Now we have many other cooking techniques. Pressure cooker. Then there is another special type of vessel, cooking vessel called rice cooker, which is popular in Kerala. I do not know what is the situation in the other places, which is some sort of an insulated container where you have got a puff made out of this thermocol or similar substances in between the walls of the vessel. So it is some sort of a thermal seal practically. So you boil the rice in water, maybe for maybe 1/4 of the total cooking span. Then you take this cooking vessel, in the normal vessel, out of the stove and place it in this rice cooker, which is not placed on any oven or on stove, nothing. Close it tight and keep it overnight. Next day morning, you will get the rice cooked fully, completely, leaving a good bulk of water in it, but because the water portion is not evaporated or not lost. Then you sieve it or filter it, remove the watery portion, and your rice is ready, cooked rice is ready. So only very minimal time it is cooked directly on the flames. The rest of the time it is getting self-cooked within this rice cooker or this particular container with that seal. Then microwave ovens, induction cookers, which give all very fast cooking modes. So we have to look into all these options, understand what is happening in the quality of the gruels and the rice prepared out of these methods. Interestingly, when I notice, of course, it will be the observation of every Vaidya I know. These the younger generation of these days, especially the kids or even the adults, young adults, they don't prefer to have any of these gruels as their food of choice. They don't go for yavagu, they don't go for peya. And I was eager to know what could be the reason, and the reason is, when you use these sort of things like this rice cooker or induction cooker or pressure cooker even, and this microwave, all these things, you don't get this rice properly mixed, properly synced with that watery portion. They remain in this rice sittam remains in the water as completely separate entity. There is no connection. This water portion will have no taste at all. It will be tasting like maybe just a warm water, nothing more. So practically that hridyam property of this yavagu, peya, vilebi is completely lost. And you cannot prepare a vilebi out of it. That is another issue. If you want to make a vilebi, then obviously you have to cook it again in open flame, and then once it is vilebi, definitely it will have some hridya property, but that is generally not used. But this yavagu and peya has got no taste at all. So when you again advise this yavagu or peya to a child or even to a young adult these days, they won't continue taking it many a times because it is not at all hridyam, not at all rujikaram. So we should have an idea about the cooking practices in the regular households as well. And this yavagu, but interestingly in Ayurveda, is one of the most liberally used tool. Those lines, I hope you will be remembering it. Those lines about the quality of yavagu given in Charaka Samhita Jwara Chikilsitam is very important. It's very interesting as well, isn't it? Like that Vamidam Lenghidam Kale Yavagu Bhirupachared Yathaswaushadha Siddhabhihi Mandapurvabhi Adidaha, which we saw from Ashtanga Hridayam as well. Then the next few lines, Tasya Agnir Dipyadetabhihi Samitbhiriva Pavagaha Tascha Bheshaja Samyogad Laghutvad cha Agnidipanaha Vadamutra Purishanam Doshanam cha Anulomanaha Swedanaya Dravoshnatvad Dravatvad Trit Prashantaye Aharabhavad Pranaya Saratvad Laghavaya cha Jwarakhnyo Jwarasatmyatvad Tasmad Peyabhiraditaha Jwaran Upajaridhiman. So those lines, that gives you a wonderful idea about how effectively an intelligent Vaidya can employ the potential of Yavagu in his or her chikitsa. So that is very, very important. I think we have exceeded our time limit. With this, I conclude. I retire. I hope there will be some idea coming back from those who are in the room and waiting for that. Nilesh.
Yes, sir, definitely. If anybody wants to add or any questions, we can take in a few minutes. Otherwise, we can conclude, sir, today.
Yes.
I think we can conclude, sir, today.
Yeah, we can conclude. We can conclude.
Yes, yes. With this
Okay then.
very informative about Yavagu, Vilepi, Peya, I think all these things matter, means a lot while practicing, and definitely people will find it useful in their daily life, I think.
Yeah, only when these things are translated into the clinics, then only they are beneficial. Otherwise, this will be giving you, especially the students, not the practitioners, maybe a couple of marks in the exams, nothing more.
Uh, 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 Definitely we are using it. I think Ashwin sir wants to say something.
Yeah, yes. Ashwin, please come on.
Uh, Sir, I noticed the difference between the rice cooked in the cooker and the
Mm,
direct boiling with the open
yes,
vessel.
yes.
Since last 2 years, I have been studying with the different patients, and I
Mm,
find that in the people who are using with the cooker, the chances
mm.
of getting the cholesterol accumulation, the bad cholesterol accumulation in the blood reports also it is increasing. And when
Oh,
I asked them to switch over to the open vessel cooking, it is
mm,
drastically it has come down in many people. And so
mm,
then since then I advised for many people, because I also noticed that, as you mentioned, cooking with the open vessel and the closed vessel with the cooker, the heat remains inside and the water content is also less, and it won't be get properly boiled. I usually suggest, I tell the people that in the cooker it becomes it will be soft, it never becomes properly boiled.
mm,
It won't be properly, as you mentioned, it is supakwa will not happen, only
mm,
pakwa will
mm,
happen.
mm,
Supakwa is it is only it becomes soft, it never becomes a thing which can be uh, properly boiled. So I find that, and also I feel that the present day Agni Vikaras are also greatly because of the way of the cooking in the cooker. Once the society started using it last 10-15 years, the
mm,
incidence of diabetes and the gastritis, all these complaints which are commonly people are suggesting because of the Agni Vikriti, and also it also influences the inside the rasa also. So
oh,
it influences the srotas, and also in the later days, after a period of time, it manifests as a disease.
mm,
Because rice is the way the grain what we use, it is the major part of our food.
mm,
So when we are not properly, and maybe grain is also not good, but when we use the not so good grain and improper use of the heating method, it also contributes to that, and the individual will have greater possibility of greater accumulation of doshas. That is what I find, and I'm also feeling, I'm also seeing the differences once they start switching over to the proper open vessel cooking. And I have also taken the reports and the readings, and
mm,
then it is also coming great difference in that. In many people, people who are, I just when the people come with the report of the cholesterol increase, and I just go through all their history, and I try to correct them. And in many of the people, maybe around 20 to 30, I just ask them to go with the proper boiling with the open vessel, and I find the difference in all those people whom I have suggested.
Very important information. Very important, because I think see, uh, as our very famous shloka tells us, ahar sambhavam vastu rogascha ahar sambhava. So when
Yes.
this aharam, however precious it is in terms of its quality, if it is not
Yes.
properly processed and properly used, including every aspect of that ahara vidhi, is important. So what
Yes.
Dr. Ashwin has observed here and explained here is so important, so crucial.
And
So
also
that is
I
the
find
point. Yes,
one
please
more
continue.
point, sir, when the process of, I mean, even the boiled rice, I mean, what is that, dehusked and
Mm,
polished rice and
mm,
unpolished or minimal polished rice, that also
mm,
makes the difference. And recently I had a patient who is in a research field in central government, some this one, and he was telling they are working on the hybrid variety of rice. So
mm,
then I was asking, have you find any difference between the polished and unpolished rice? Did you do any
mm,
research?
mm,
They told he did not do, but one fact is true, that now once it is polished, the one coating which is the primary coating after the husking, the primary coating is a full of it's a protein coating
mm,
that will go away with the
mm.
polished. With the more polishing, then the coating will go away. And
Yes.
what I find is, sir, when the major problem of rice, the present Western community, what they say is it's also included in one among the three white poisons.
Mm.
So why rice it becomes something like it's a reason for diabetes and other cardiovascular disease. That is what the present research, what Western countries say. But
Yes,
what
yes.
I find, I thought that once we start boiling in the open vessel, and
Mm.
whatever the manda watery portion we discard, that is full of starch. It's full of carbohydrates, whatever it is. So
Yes.
carbohydrate is one of the major reasons for diabetes. What that is what the present study says, and we destarch it with the proper boiling, and the
Mm.
complete unwanted portion of such elements which are not required for the body will be eliminated out, and only the odana which is individual will be in a swastha person will be taking, will not be giving the contribution for the diabetes or obesity. And many people I get, as many clients I get from the different parts of the world, and in the beginning we give only rice and other such situations, such things in major portion of our food. And the people in for last 10 years, I find that they were complaining in the beginning that we will put on weight, you don't give rice to us. Then I say
Mm.
it is not the rice which is the problem. It is the what is that all other aspect. It's a pramana, how it is cooked, with what it is processed. Many things will be considered. How it is grown is also need to be considered. Then I started challenging, and we have taken for 1 year it was difficult for me, because to find the difference after 1 month, before 1 month, during the treatment and after the treatment, then
Mm.
they all started losing their weight. Unwanted weight is lost very well with the continuum of the odana. I mean, rice as a major grain in our diet. So
Mm.
then they were also convinced. They all started asking for the where to they want place grown in this area. Am I audible?
Yeah, in between your voice was broken. Now we can
Got a
hear you.
call. Okay. No. And then the rice which is grown in this place is good for this place. Rice may not. This may not be rice which is good for your place also. So maybe if at all you have a particular grain and you have a tradition of practice in your place, you just ask them and try to go with the practice that may give you much better result. That is what I told. So
Okay.
I find that the rice, dehusked rice with minimum polish or less polished, that will be the best grain in that area. Locally grown and organic rice is a good idea. And open vessel boiling is also makes a difference. That I also seen in the clinics. We definitely, I feel that the people will, they are having the better health once they started using that. With all other corrections with their physical activity and many things whatever we need to correct the sleeping pattern and other things. So that is also giving a better idea, better results. And also one more thing, recently I was discussing with one of the farmer here who is a organic who is into the organic farming. He was telling that once the present day paddy, once the paddy is harvested, the
Hmm.
machines which are harvesting it, they
Hmm.
have a quick capacity just to take out the rice directly from the that grass. Rice will be directly taken out the moment it is cut off. So it should
Yes.
not be like that. What he used to what he told, he is a good observer and he's also a very good interesting person. He was telling in the past they used to cut off the paddy and they will heap it over for at least for 3 to 5 days or 7 days before they take it out for taking out the paddy from the rice from the paddy grass. So with when they make it as a heap, within 2 days or 3 days, the husk and the rice will be separated because of the heat inside,
Hmm.
and that will protect the protein layer, which is very much important. That will be
Hmm.
important. That makes the difference whether the rice is good or rice is not good.
Hmm.
So the directly when the present big machines when they started coming, they cut off and directly they also have the capacity to take out the paddy from the rice from the paddy grass. So there is no time for that separation of husk and the rice inside the grain
Hmm.
inside.
Hmm.
That will when it is taken into the mills, the one which is heaped and separated, that will have the protein layer within it. That which is
Hmm.
not directly when it is taken into the mill, that the protein layer, half of that also will be just it will be squeezed in between the husking process, and that is also lost. That also makes the rice is not good for the individual. Upon which
Yes.
once again cooking in the cooker makes the difference.
Yes.
So these things I think I have worked in last 2 3 years. That's why I thought I will just talk. I will try. I have the some I can share it with you, sir.
Really great. Really, really interesting and really important as well.
Yes, sir.
Yes, definitely, sir. Thank you, Ashwin sir, for your valuable contribution. I think if you can make a presentation on this, and we can have a session specially for your
Yes, yes.
presentation.
Yeah, that will be great.
I think more people will be interested to hear your views about this.
Exactly.
No, what? Okay, sir. I'm okay. But whenever it is, I have more information. I will try to collect it, and every day I am talking at least for 10 with the 10 of my clients in the clinic, and I try to change their food practice. At least whatever I told, these aspects I always tell them, and that makes the difference, sir. At least
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
10 20% of the medication itself in the life in the future also for many things they don't.
Your voice is cracking, I think.
Ashwin sir,
Need to go
Your voice is cracking in between. Ashwin sir, you are not audible now.
Go to
Ashwin sir, you are not audible. I think there is some network issue at your place.
I think his connection is gone now.
Yes, yes, yes. I think with this, sir, we can conclude today.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Prasad sir. Thank you, everyone. Yes, thank you all.
Okay, okay, bye.
Bye, sir. Bye. Thank you.